My name is Michael McLuhan, and welcome to the Startup Global SoCal series. It's the third of 6 Monday night sessions to help startups grow globally. I represent tonight 2 of the 6 presenters, the International Business Accelerator. We work with startups and high growth companies to catapult them cross-border compliantly and profitably. LAVA, the Los Angeles Venture Association. I'm a leader in their global community where we introduce founders to funders and vice versa for global growth. The other ones are LMU, Loyola Marymount University College of Business Administration, the Milken Institute, the United States Commercial Service, and the owner of the Startup Global brand and events that they've done across the country in most major metropolitan areas is the Global Innovation Forum out of Washington, D.C. So the previous topics that we've done, I'll mention because we are recording these and they will be available as soon as possible. First one was a general strategy and resources to take a startup and a high growth company global. The second one that we did last week was an amazing one on finance and funding, how to get the capital that's needed to grow cross-border, and where to find it and what to do with it and how to put yourself in a position to ask for it. And then next week we'll be doing Thrive in Country, meaning what to expect once you get into that new market. And the second to last one is the legal side of global commerce and international trade. Essentially, don't lose your you-know-what as you expand into new foreign markets. And then the last one's going to be a deep dive. So we're going to take everything that we've presented and we're going to put it into a very tangible, real-world situation, and everybody can build along their own roadmap and strategy. So tonight, again, is the third of 6, and it's e-commerce and digital strategy. So what we'll explore tonight is simple steps that you can take to succeed globally, how to market and sell and get paid, and the digital services and the tools to do so. So a little housekeeping, we'll have both a Q&A and a chat. So please stay lively in the chat. I'll be there facilitating introductions and providing, contact info for the panelists. If you have the questions for the panelist or a general question, please make sure to put those in the Q&A, not in the chat. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jamaica and our esteemed entrepreneur. I'm really eager to hear which phone call opened up 500 doors for you in the Russian market. So hope you share that one with us. So thanks everybody. Jamaica.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael. And thank you to our audience and all of our speakers for being with us this afternoon or evening. So as Michael said, my name is Jamaica Gale. I'm the Deputy Director of the Global Innovation Forum, which is based in Washington, D.C. So at GIF, our goal is to connect entrepreneurs and small businesses with the resources that they need to succeed in the global marketplace. So with that in mind, GIF launched the Startup Global brand in 2015 in partnership with the Commerce Department, just to provide that really focused advice to small and early stage American companies that were looking to export. So today we have the pleasure of joining the International Business Accelerator, as well as so many other great organizations, to bring you this series. So right now I am delighted to be speaking with Emilio Smike, the founder and CEO of Daily Concepts, which is a luxury innovative bath series brand, just to explore how he has leveraged e-commerce and digital tools to really grow his business globally. So now I'd like to invite Emilio to join me for what will certainly be an informative conversation. So Emilio, if you could just start by giving us an overview of your business, just tell us a little bit about you and your business, and then we're particularly interested in some of how you've been engaging globally and in those international markets.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jamaica. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for allowing me to share my story. So first and foremost, I'm the creator of Daily Concepts. I'm the owner of this brand of bath accessories. We do things very differently. We like to think and sing in the shower. That's where I come up with all these great ideas. And obviously, with all this innovation, trying to elevate the bathing experience, we came up with 4 items when we first started. Now we have over 55 SKUs. Many of them sell internationally, but basically it's a line of bath accessories that we have been creating to elevate that experience and to ultimately shower the world with love. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I really want to dig into how you have grown your business internationally. So some of those like digital tools and strategies that you have really been using to start exporting, continue exporting, and then finding those international customers. So obviously, like during the last several months, we've seen a huge shift to everything digital, e-commerce, e-payments, just everything digital, video conferencing. So can you, one, tell us how your business has been affected by COVID and the pandemic? And then two, if we could dig into some of those digital tools that you have utilized to overcome some of those challenges.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's kind of like, it's hard for me to share that we have been growing successfully amid a pandemic, right? Because it doesn't feel well to grow on expenses of people dying and people getting sick. But fortunately for us, we have taken the hygiene products or the hygiene part of what we do, the personal care power of what we do, to take the experience of the spa at home. And we have built on that. And obviously, the more that we are trying to reach out to the people out there and selling more products, the more that we're going to give back, that we believe in giving back. So I just want to start by saying that our growth will help also other people in one way or another. So, but yes, you know, the world became very small right now in the sense that people, of course, started to getting more into treatments, spas, or getting out. Obviously, everybody was locked down and many places are still locked down. So the opportunity of creating a product that not only is going to clean yourself, clean your skin, but also will pamper you at home, allowed us to start growing in sales. So definitely the last 7 months have been significantly an increase. And obviously we had all the right tools from e-commerce, as you were saying, having a website that it was prepared like a platform like Shopify that helps you know, customers really buy fast and easy, and getting all the social media marketing and everything aligned towards the search of the products that people were looking for, personal care type of products or spa type of products at home. Obviously that helped a lot in order that we can definitely become more successful in what we do and keep the word of daily concepts out there, and definitely shower the world with love based on what we experienced.
Of course, thank you so much. So can you, when you started engaging in global marketplaces, what were like one or two of the largest difficulties, largest challenges or barriers that your company saw? And I guess, were there any technology solutions that you identified to help overcome any of those?
So I think like the most important thing that you have to detect first and foremost is like, how can you be innovative? How can you be different than anybody else? So I would say that the most challenging part is finding what is out there in the market and how can you make it better. What is the point of differentiation of a product or a service that you're providing that it can be actually different from anybody else? So like, for example, the first challenge that we had is there's a lot of Asian products similar to mine that is just like a bath accessory. And we needed to overcome a product that it could be not only just a loofah or a bath accessory, something that can really touch on people's lives. So again, we did a lot of research and development. We were looking as how we can educate ourselves in order that we can become a better company, and as a business owner, also get more education on the sense of how to access all these markets. And obviously, prior the pandemic to now, we were attending physical shows, and those physical shows overseas, like for example in Europe, allowed me to see what was out there, but obviously with the homework already done. And programs like grant programs from the government, even the STEP program that gives you certain money towards doing all these trade shows, definitely has helped in the past to have the exposure that I needed. And you can not only do it once, you have to consistently be educating yourself and learning what is available out there, so you can take advantage of what there is to offer.
Absolutely. That was actually going to be one of my next questions, is about government resources and just the resources out there, either from the public or private sector, that are available for small businesses looking to export. So at the Global Innovation Forum, something that we hear a lot from small businesses is just that, one, they want to export, but when it comes to a lot of the, I guess, like rules and regulations that come along with international e-commerce, it gets very, very difficult. So from your perspective, what are some like specific resources that you've used, if it's either from the private or public sector, that have helped you grow your business globally and that you would recommend to other small businesses?
I mean, from starting by getting just a regular course on how to do exports and how to learn about the different markets that are worldwide, and learning about the US commercial service, for example. This is, I think, that a tool that people have not really realized or utilized as much, but from the key programs that they have to offer of finding out what market it's better for your products and learning about those markets that you're trying to reach out, to the point that going to a trade show and having the US commercial service kind of like set you up, kind of like matchmaking type of things with other companies or distributors that are looking for products like yours. And that, to me, that has been one of the most valuable things. Like in one trade show that I was able to have all the right tools and the right information from the US commercial service. They set me up with the right account, for example, in Italy. And that Italian account became one of my largest success stories as of today. I mean, it was 500 doors that it opened up in Italy, and it was replicated 2 years after in the Russian market. So obviously now every year that I have an opportunity to contact the US commercial service and use the key program in order to find out what is the best distributor, find out if that distributor is real, making sure that that the tariffs are not going to be blocking any of my products. If I need to have a responsible person for a specific cosmetic or beauty product, that I am already a step ahead and trying to have that regulatory product already like completely compliant in that country that I'm going to reach at. And obviously that is half of the job done. If everybody wants to just show up in a trade show thinking that they're going to receive customers and they're going to start selling, I think they're doing a big mistake. I think you have to do your homework, and you really need to focus on every single line of distribution that you're trying to reach and try to have your homework done. And for that, you can use the US commercial service, the STEP programs that it can also give you some grants if you don't have all the cash flow to spend on international markets. And sometimes, believe it or not, it's easier and cheaper to go outside and export your products than selling your products in the United States.
Absolutely. That's I think, very interesting and important thing to bring up. And what we always try to, I guess, express to small businesses that are looking to export is that it really is a combination of the resources from the government that are available that sometimes people don't always know about, and then the resources from like technology companies and that kind of thing. And I think specifically like what you were saying about doing your homework before you go to those like big events, like whether it be some different like technology analytical system to kind of like test out different markets and that kind of thing. But are there any specific technology tools, I guess, that you have used, like when you say you do your homework before going to those trade shows?
I mean, yes, I think we have. And right now, everything is so available these days, specifically now. I mean, there's no excuses of saying like, I cannot, find the right buyer in, let's say, in Singapore, or the time zone make something different. So you can use all these platforms like Zoom, like Teams, any platform that you might think. There's even trade shows that are virtual these days. And yeah, it's just like, you just have to make sure you're using all this technology, and you will be saving actually money right now in order that, in my opinion, I think that it's a good opportunity for any type of company to really do their due diligence and use the technology that we have just to get into that marketplace.
Absolutely. In the absence of, I guess, trade shows and being able to be in a space with that many people, have you found an alternative to that? Or has, I guess, the industry found an alternative to that?
There is. I mean, right now I have participated already in 3 international shows where all the meetings are virtual, and they consist of like 20-minute type of meetings with distributors and retailers. And it's a very nice, easy platform that actually it's saving me money. It's saving me travel times. I'm faster on the follow-up, which sometimes follow-up is 99% of just doing any type of trade shows. And all these buyers that are also not traveling, so they don't have to catch up with all these emails. They don't have to catch up with all this time that they're off. And the response the response rate is way faster. And actually, I have seen more effective deals in the last 7 months that I have seen in maybe 3 or 4 years. So this is an opportunity that, of course, it's hard and it hits us a lot, but it's also an opportunity to engage with the retailer or the distributor in a faster way.
No, absolutely. I mean, obviously, this is a very difficult time, but small businesses are taking this opportunity, I think, to adapt and react very, very quickly. I think my last question for you, as time is running out, so with all the challenges that you've experienced entering those international markets, do you have any advice or just maybe some comments for like what can governments do to help small businesses like yours access those global markets?
Honestly, I think it just goes down to education. I mean, we need to educate ourselves. And if the government can give you the access and the tools to learning about that market that you're trying to go to, which actually they do now, but if you get that education going and you understand how to deal with distributors, how to price your products right, if there's any tariffs, how you need to quote those products, all the different Incoterms that exist, trying to understand all this power of negotiation between different kind of like people. They don't think the same way in Latin America that they would think in Europe. So you need to understand the culture. And for all those resources, I think at the end, which they're available today, it just goes down to education. Educate yourself. We need to educate. And I'm learning as I go. I still have a lot of things to learn. And as more as they become available to companies like mine, I would love to learn more and just immerse myself in a lot of education.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful place to end it. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story and providing such wonderful insight. I think there might be some questions for you at the end, potentially, but I'm going to hand things over to Kevin McLeodon from the Milken Institute to lead the panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamaica.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to Jamaica and Emilio, and for all of you who are on right now. We are now going to go into the main part of the panel for today. I have my name is Kevin McLeodon. I'm Executive Director of the Center for Regional Economics at the Milken Institute, who has had the pleasure of partnering on this series of webinars. And today is actually an incredibly important topic. It's called Make Sales, E-commerce and Digital Strategy. But the reason especially that it is so relevant is, of course, because of the pandemic, in the fact that electronic commerce provides a tool, mechanism, and quite honestly, in many cases, the ability to connect as well as conduct sales in a way that many other aspects do not. And in order to discuss not only the concepts behind e-commerce, but the tools that are available for execution, as well as what we are intending to do with it, and how companies can utilize it to not only maintain their businesses during the pandemic, to be able to engage in international trade, but grow their businesses in a circumstance that might feel otherwise, quite honestly, constraining and under pressure. Is we have a great group of 3 panelists who are going to talk about the different topics. With me today are Terry Batch, who is the Senior International Trade Specialist in the E-commerce Innovation Lab of the United States Commercial Service. Terry is somebody who is incredibly knowledgeable and will help us go through the various elements of this. Joshua Aiken, who is Chief of Staff at Zonos, who's a cross-border e-commerce software platform company, which has been around for more than 11 years and has tremendous success in not only guiding companies in terms of e-commerce, but providing them a platform, technology, and elements for actually executing and dealing with a number of the different issues that you probably didn't even realize you needed to know about when it comes to e-commerce. And Josh Halpern, who is chairman of the Getting to Global Initiative and chief strategy officer for the California International Trade Center, who can provide a number of different insights on the pathway that companies have used to get involved in e-commerce, the various strategies on e-commerce that are being done by the state of California and more broadly, as well as in engaging with the Commerce Department, and the number of different efforts that you as companies can use to engage in e-commerce, to use it to overcome barriers and expand and grow. So I would like to start first and foremost with our resident sage and aide on e-commerce issues, Terry. So Terry, first and foremost, what kind of resources does the U.S. Commercial Service have to assist companies with their digital strategy?
Thank you, Kevin. Well, first of all, I guess I want to start off by saying thank you guys for being here for this panel. I think you guys all have wonderful insight to share with the companies that have joined us this evening. And it is a very important topic. And I think that this is something that can help companies to survive this period that we're in right now. And so one of the things that the U.S. Department of Commerce, or the U.S. Commercial Service, which is one and the same, what we've done several years ago, it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, we started something called the eCommerce Lab. And the eCommerce Lab was basically, the eCommerce Innovation Lab. The eCommerce Innovation Lab is basically an effort for us in the U.S. government to provide small businesses with resources to help you develop your digital strategy. So we do have a website that is full of information about what companies can do to help develop your websites and take advantage of different tools. And it is a resource that's free, it's available, and there's a lot of videos that go through the different processes that might seem confusing or places where you might need help. And then also we have a service that we provide to companies. It's called a website globalization review. And any of our trade specialists, or most of our trade specialists within our offices, can help a company walk you through your website and basically do a gap analysis. And in that gap analysis, it'll show you what areas on your website can you improve so that you can increase the likelihood of an international buyer or a foreign company to find you. Because the biggest issue with if you have a website, you're already global, because anybody can access your website. But how do you optimize your website, and what tools do you use so that folks can find you, and also that you can convert that into sales? So we've focused a lot of our efforts over the past few years of really, like Emilio said, educating companies on the tools that you need, or the changes that you need to make so that you can be prepared for a global audience. And the website globalization review is a very good service. It's for small businesses, it's $100. And basically we do a full-blown analysis of your website. We use some tools that are available on the market to do a back-end analysis of your website. We look at your keywords, we look at a lot of different areas, and then we make those recommendations. We don't do the work for you. We tell you, look, these are the things that you need to look at in order to improve your website. So it's a great service, and I would recommend that anybody that's on the call, if you're interested in that service, to please reach out and let us know. We'd be more than happy to work with you on it.
Great. Thank you very much, Terry. And just to build off of that, one note I will add is that in working with the commercial services, that one of the things I do at Milken is that I chair a group called the Trade Finance Advisory Council for the U.S. Department of Commerce. And one of the things that we've been particularly engaged in doing is trying to give additional tools to the U.S. Export Assistance Centers and the Department of Commerce to help particularly with these efforts and to be able to maximize them. But quite honestly, without the expertise of people like Terry, they wouldn't go anywhere. So Terry, thank you very much. And with that, would love to translate, not translate, but to transition to Joshua Aiken. Joshua, just to go a little further on the ground, what does the buying experience look like for the average cross-border e-commerce customer?
That is a very good question, Kevin. I can speak at Zonos. We're kind of on that optimization side of all those things Terry talked about. So we kind of fit a niche there where you have a global website because you have a website and anybody can get to your website. And once they're there and they've come to you from outside of their own country and they want to buy your products, there's a couple of things that they should know or need to know in order to have a successful experience with you. And if they don't, it often looks like a really, really bad experience. So to your question, what does that look like? If you're, I'll use the concept of the United States seller, and someone from outside the United States, say even Canada, comes and buys a product on their website. Well, if you're not aware of things like duties and taxes or de minimis values for duty into Canada, and all you show them is the price and the shipping costs for that order, and then charge that to their credit card through your Shopify or BigCommerce or your website, what'll happen is when it gets to their door, they are the importer. They will be the ones that are responsible for those duties and taxes. If you don't disclaim that on your website, then they don't even know it. And if you disclaim it, but you don't really explain to them what that means, they don't really care that you disclaimed, that you said that that you're responsible if you buy this stuff. It's a bad experience, right? They're still upset. They still have to pay duties and taxes, or they abandon the product, or they charge back the money from their credit card and flame you on social media. It's a losing experience for them no matter what, if they don't have the information necessary to make that buying decision at the time that they buy the information, that they buy the product. So it's across the board can be a very bad experience. And really, the retailer doesn't know what they don't know, especially in the United States, because very few of us buy a lot of cross-border. So we don't have that experience often to know what they're going through and fix it. So if you really want to do it right and you want to keep your customers happy and you want to treat your international customer like your domestic customer, there's a few extra steps you have to take.
And it's good to know, especially what those extra steps are, so that you don't get tripped up along the way. So that's incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thank you very much. And now we'll to Josh Halpern. Just sort of connecting and building off of that, is that Terry's talked a little bit about this and Joshua talked about the platform element, but what exactly is the process for a company or entrepreneur to get started with all of this, with assistance from the U.S. Commercial Service for their digital strategy, and what should they be looking for?
Sure, thank you. And it's great to be here, obviously, so many great people and minds on the call. And I'll talk a little bit about the resources too. So we also have a lot of accelerators online to help companies figure out what are their main pain points, what do they need to deal with for every aspect of cross-border e-commerce. And then we drive in with advisors on what does the digital marketing strategy look like? What should you be doing on your website for checkouts and duties and taxes? How do you deal with marketplace optimization? How do you get on a marketplace in the right way where it's beneficial for you? And where would you place your inventory to maximize that opportunity? Obviously, there's such a number of challenges, but also opportunities, as you're saying, Kevin. When you talk about getting global, I think the biggest takeaway from anything that we talk about is that the steps are incremental. So when you talk about how do you go global and people sit there and say, well, you need at least $20,000 or you need this much, you need to localize your website. There's a number of ways you can incrementally get involved, and companies like Zonos, they do amazing jobs. When you already are on a platform, whether you're on Shopify, BigCommerce, and Magento, what are the plugins that work? Or if you're on a WordPress with a WooCommerce, there are a lot of plugins out there like Zonos that gets you a cross-border checkout counter that's optimized. It gets you the currency. It gets you to say yes to global in a matter of a week, maybe two, and with minimal money. So then the question is, okay, so what is your real step? No longer about getting your products from A to B, because there are a number of facilities that do cross-border fulfillment. The next step is how do you build your brand? As Amelia was talking about, how do you get the brand message out? What's the differentiator between you and the other products out there? It's a very competitive landscape. So it's not just a question of what we think as America, we're about to get global, we're going online. Companies and countries have been doing this for a long time, and they have the duties and taxes. They've got all these pieces together. What do you do to cut through the noise when you're a beauty product brand? What is the key pain point that you're offering? And that's understanding what's out there in the market. So the very basic research you can do on your own, searching on a marketplace in a local language for a similar product, looking at a similarweb.com and just typing in your URL in SimilarWeb and saying, all right, what is the traffic for competitors of mine that may have larger traffic in a market? Who's going to that site, and how do I leverage that? So there's a lot about brand building and identifying your unique space in a country or a region. That's the key challenge. So you really need to do, a lot of the research, which of course we all are talking about today.
Well, thank you very much, Josh. And actually, that is a huge challenge. And it's an intimidating one for a number of businesses, because it's not just enough to know that you have a product you want to export. It's about identifying what that market is. And now some of that can be, even if the companies themselves need to do it. A question for all of you is, what is a good way, particularly, to identify these markets, to identify these different companies, for the companies to identify the countries so that they're going into this process?
You know what, I'd like to answer that, because one thing I didn't mention in my remarks is one of the things that the Commerce Department does, or the Commercial Service has, is we have, for every country that we do business with, that we trade with, we have what's called a country commercial guide. And within that country commercial guide is a great place to start in terms of trying to understand what the opportunities are for to do business in that country. And recently, I think within the past 2 years, we started including a section about digital strategy and e-commerce. So it really talks about, specifically for that market, what are the major platforms in that market, or what are some resources that US companies can take advantage of. So I think that if you're trying to sell to a particular market, and I always tell people, if you're new to this game, Mexico and Canada are really close. I would set your websites up so you can take advantage of that, and also the new the US Mexico Canada agreement that we're going to talk about in another session. But setting your website so people in Canada and Mexico can buy from it, and then going to that country commercial guide just to kind of figure out, okay, what are the nuances for that market that I need to make sure that my website is covering, is a great place to start.
I'd love to jump in as well. Josh, you want to?
No, go ahead, Josh.
Well, just again, jumping on what Terry's talking about as well. I mean, and then in addition to that, take a look at what you already have. A lot of people have not looked at their analytics from a global perspective. Take a snapshot of who's visiting your website, who's on your social. That serves a couple of different purposes. One is obviously understanding, maybe you have maybe you don't have statistically relevant enough information from a country, but there's a couple of people talking about it. But maybe you can identify an ambassador, a brand kind of liaison. But also it helps, even if you're doing brick and B2B, because you can start telling distributors, and I'm sure Emilio's gone through this, you talk to a distributor, the first thing our distributors look at is, what's the Instagram feed right now on any brands that I bring to them. They want to know, what is the existing chatter about this brand? Is there any? And it gives you a much better negotiating scenario for any discussion, even on a B2B level. And so there's a lot you can do from your own data already existing. And then of course you can use other tools out there, but I can't believe how many people haven't done that yet, right?
You mentioned SimilarWeb, Josh, in your first introduction, and we use that all the time to show people just the free plugin, just to say, hey, look, did you realize how much traffic you have from X niche country? And that could come from them having a strong influencer maybe in that country that resonates with their product and shares it with their friends. They really didn't even know that those people were coming, and they're not converting that traffic at any level because they don't even know they're there.
I'll put the link here for SimilarWeb if you want. None of us, by the way, neither of us work for SimilarWeb, but your problem, a lot of companies that are on this today will look at is when they go to SimilarWeb, they don't have statistically relevant enough data. No. But let's say you're a rock climbing company. I always use an example, in going to France, go to decathlon.fr, see where their traffic's coming from. Are there associations that are driving traffic? Are there other ways that they're getting traffic? And then use it as a proxy for what your brand might be able to do.
For sure. Yeah.
And for everyone, that is something that's incredibly important, is that you have these basic tools and analytics that you can utilize on that without having to go out and rely on other companies, other external resources to be able to do it. And that is also, that brings up another issue that, Joshua, I want to direct your way, which is that as much as it's important to identify what's going on in terms of who's visiting, it's also important to understand what the circumstances are that's evolving in these other countries and other regions, so that you're not caught off guard and you can have an idea of some of these changing elements. One of the things that has clearly been going on is that there have been a number of changes happening. You've got Brexit in its whatever stage it's on, what's been going on with the European Union over this year, and in comparison also to what happened with Australia last year. What kind of changes are these that people should be aware of, and what can they do about it?
All right, I'll just preface, or I'll thank you for that question. So about a year and a half ago, Australia changed their low value tax law. They had this level under which you didn't have to collect duty or duty or tax and remit it, you just didn't have to collect it because it was just going to fly in under the radar. And then they decided, hey, let's change that around and make the retailer, put the onus on the retailer to collect the duties and taxes. So anybody over the threshold of 70,000 AUD or Australian dollars selling into that country in a given calendar year had to collect the duties and taxes, register with Australia, and remit those duties and taxes. Well, kind of a genius approach to a country to receive those low value, without having to do a lot of clerical work. Basically, they put the onus on the companies. Well, it worked, and New Zealand followed suit, and so did I think Norway has a little change like that. But UK is about to do that in January of 2021 on a grander scale than any of the rest of them, because there's no bottom value. They're putting the onus on the retailer to collect the VAT on the low value goods. So that's just information that I guess I think Emilio put it best: education, right? That's all of our goal and all of our job is to educate people on what they need to know to be able to get out there and be successful.
Great, and that transitions to a question for Terry and Josh, which is that are companies able to get one-on-one counseling, in particular about their online presence from trade specialists? And it does that particularly allow them to understand and adapt in terms of that, to be able to deal with what's some of these changes that are going on and to be able to tailor their strategies?
Yes. So with the U.S. Commercial Service, depending on where you are, I think most of the participants are from California, but we have participants that have signed up for this series from all over the country. You would talk to your local trade specialists. And basically what we've been doing is we've been refining our skills, because as trade has changed, we have to change as trade specialists and make sure that we're up on this knowledge. So you can reach out to me. I could be your first point of contact, but depending on where you are and also what industry sector you are a part of, I can put you in touch. If it's not myself, I can put you in touch with someone that can walk you through, the resources that we have, can initiate the website globalization review for you, which it takes about, it's maybe a 5-day turnaround once all the paperwork is put in. But you can definitely speak with a trade specialist, and they can help you navigate all of these different resources that are out there. We're live people, we do pick up the phone, we do respond to email. So I think if you just reach out to us and say, hey, this is my company, this is my website, can you offer assistance to us? Absolutely, that's what we're here for, is to help you navigate through all of this that we're discussing.
For us, if you're a California-based company, we do one-on-one consulting. We work very closely as the California International Trade Center with the SBDC network and eCommerce around the state. So we have a series of sessions. First, we do a needs assessment online accelerator. Then we say, all right, you're going to do one of maybe 3 or 4 different pillars you want to deep dive. So we have a 1-hour session on cross-border digital marketing. We use an accelerator tool, and we go through it live with you with an SEO expert. Then we have one on logistics and fulfillment optimization. And then we have one on website optimization and one on marketplace optimization. And those are 1-hour sessions each in partnership. So if you're in California and you speak to any of the SBDC, say, I want that Josh guy with the eCommerce, that accelerator thing with California International Trade Center, whatever you get of that, we'll figure out how to help.
Yeah, and can I just add one more thing to that? Emilio had referred to this, and I put it in the chat. There is a program called the California STEP program. And the California STEP is really good, especially for small businesses. it's not a ton of money, but if you're a small business, if you can get $5,000 to put towards your website, that's significant. And right now the application period is open. So if you're looking at revamping your website, all of our, like with the exception of the $100 fee we charge for the website globalization review, all of our services are practically free. But when we make recommendations to you and say, hey, you know, you need to change this design so that you can attract more international visitors, and there's a cost associated with that, you have to go back to your web designer, or you have to initiate some services of experts who focus on, you know, very specific areas. You can use the STEP funds to help pay for that. So I work with my clients all the time. Once they have done a website globalization review, I say, hey, go get the STEP money and that'll cover your cost. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And then also I wanted to mention, we do have business service providers on our website. We don't endorse any of them, but we say, hey, if you're looking for an SEO expert, here's a company. If you're looking for a payments company, here's a company that you can reach out to. And that also helps you cut through a lot of the noise that's out there, because there's so many people saying so many different things. So as a small business or even a startup, it can be confusing as far as where to start. And so that the eCommerce Innovation Lab is a great place for you to like go and like find reliable resources.
Great. Josh, one of the things that in particular in terms of resources is that, you know, a number of companies have to feel like they need to be a certain threshold in terms of before they go international. Can you talk to people about just what that threshold point is, and then if they are going global with a limited budget, where do they need to optimize to put their in order to maximize cross-border growth?
Which Josh is this? Which one?
This better be Halpern, because I'm not going to be
Joshua for. I'm saying Joshua, so yes. So.
Yeah. Okay. No, I didn't know if we were totally on with it. Joshua, Josh. Yeah. I mean, one thing again, we talk about this takeaway of. I don't believe there's a threshold. I was on a call with a company. I'm probably on with 10, maybe 20 calls with different team members and the small businesses a week. And it's crazy. And some of the companies, though, have $60 a month they're putting into budget. Now, that is quite small. And I would say there's a threshold. The threshold should be more about how much money you have to invest in the market rather than how big your company is. Let me say that. Because we've got companies, you know, Movement Watches started as 10 people, and then they got, what are they now, $300 million plus. Movado bought them out. They went global from day one. How do you do it? I think that, you know, the tools, and I don't want to pimp out Zonos. Again, I don't get anything from it, but, you know, $99 to $199 a month plus some percentage of sales, you know, for only your international. If you have to give that stuff away for percentage of sales for international, go for it. There's a lot of plugins you can do that are cheap. But what we have to do is recognize the dissolving border between the who and the where. If you have a company, if you're selling to left-handed people who like rock climbing on only moss-covered rocks, you're better off finding those people around the world than trying to find those people in San Francisco because I'm geographically located there. There's no longer a correlation. The only real barrier is, again, building that brand, which you can do more easily, as I think we talked about, Amelia was talking about. You could do it more easily by finding those tribes around the world than you can by trying to build it within your domestic market. The challenge becomes your volumes. Therefore, it's a construct of price for shipping. So yes, you want to get your shipping down, and using aggregators, integrators like the others that we have on our platform, Export Connect, you can find them. But ultimately, you want to find those shipping rates, getting those down, but the complexity is gone. I think you should, it doesn't matter how big you are, it matters how big your tribe is.
Well, that's encouraging, especially if the goal is, of course, is that for all of you who are watching is to get you and your drive up to a level where you want to participate in that. One thing that I want to just add in connection to that is that, can you talk a little bit about Export Connect and who's involved in that, and how, and what are the different resources involved in how it can help SMEs?
Sure, and I'll put it here on the chat, export-connect.org. We partnered with the Department of Commerce, with EXIM, a number of other agencies, the chambers, the World Trade Centers, the SBDCs, and we essentially tried to aggregate all of the resources that are both government and industry in one place in a very fast, lightning fast search engine that allows you to aggregate what the issues are, who's on there. We also try to put certain resources by state. We work with all the states with our partnership with CITO, the State International Development Organization. And I believe actually we're partnered with you guys, Milken and Kevin. So
yes, strangely enough, yes.
So we really, you know, look, when I was, I'm not allowed to, when I
say it.
When I started the e-commerce innovation lab a number of years ago, we really sat there and said, well, how do we, you know, companies just want to know where to go and how to get there. And there's certain barriers with being government versus industry. And so trying to be that public-private partnership to really get things out and really in the fastest way possible. And not to take any of our own credit, but to streamline it to all those great resources like Commerce has, like, you know, these SBDCs have. But depending on your size, you want to figure out basically a matchmaking of resources, grants, etc. So we'll be integrating further questions that help you kind of figure out what is the logistics partner I need, what's my size, what my market is, who can help me as a vegan cosmetics company certify my product in Brazil, those types of pieces of the puzzle.
Great. Now, one of the things I want to double back to for the other Joshua, for Joshua Aiken, is that there are a number of things that people particularly have to be aware of in and through this process. And one of them is, when we're talking about companies getting ready and having the drive that's large enough to, is that what is a fully landed cost, and why is that important to know, especially so as not to be surprised by it later?
Oh, okay. Well, based on kind of that discussion I brought up at the beginning about what's that customer experience like, right? What do they run into if they don't know how much it's going to cost them? Well, a fully landed cost is the cost of the product that they're purchasing, the cost of the shipping to get it to their door, the duties and the taxes that they're due as the importer. They're the ones importing the item, so they have to pay for that. And finally, what at least in our parlance, what a fully landed cost includes all the fees. And that can kind of be the tricky one, because you can use a duty and tax calculator to basically triangulate what the duties and taxes would be, maybe from your country to another country. But figuring out what the fees are, and those fees could be shipping fees, those could be brokerage fees, those could be taxes on shipping. Just figuring all that stuff together in one is what gets you a fully landed cost. And so we try to educate people on what that is and what that means and what goes into that, so that you can. And I surely do not want to make it sound like it's so dang hard nobody can export small products to foreign countries. It's not really that hard. That's kind of the reason. That's like sort of the founding story of Zonos is our CEO and founder was an international account rep for a shipping company, and U.S. exporters kept not selling into foreign countries because they couldn't answer these questions and they kept having these bad experiences, so they would not do it. And so he quit his job, started a software company, because there's a couple of key things that you just got to get right. And if you have that information, you can export to 220 countries across the globe. So it's not that hard. I don't want to make it sound like it's that hard to do. It's just a couple of key things you got to know and put them in the right place.
Now, thank you. And one thing I want to, just as a side note, to do is that we are going to be taking questions from the audience momentarily. I know a couple of you have submitted them already. Please use the Q&A function on the chat to do so. And if you, for any reason, have submitted anything in the general chat box, transfer it over. I know at least one of the questions has been particularly already answered in the chat box, but for general, if you have anything else, please, we'd be glad to have it. And as a reminder, if you have questions, not only for our panelists, but for our opening speaker as well, that would be great. So please use the Q&A function for that. One thing I do want to double back on is that, Terry, in terms of the different kind of resources that the commercial service has, and I know you've talked a little bit about this, but just stepping through again, and I think feeding off of just encouraging companies and making sure they know how to do this, is what is the process, if you're going to do it in a simple step-by-step way, for a company or entrepreneur to get started with assistance? We've talked about a lot of the different tools, but we just want to is the last thing, make sure for everybody to not be intimidated and say, hey, it's easy to get started? And how do you go about that?
Well, I think the first thing you can do is, depending on where you are located, where you are located in California. California is very fortunate. We have 13 offices in California. So being as large of an economy as we are, it warrants to have a lot of offices. And so there are international trade specialists all the way from North Bay all the way to San Diego that covers this state. And if you're outside of California and you're joining us, more than likely there is an office in your state. We're known as the UZACs, or the Export Assistance Centers. If you go to www.trade.gov, that's pretty much our main website, or it's a web portal that pulls together a lot of the information that I've been talking about tonight. And you can find your local office, or you can send me an email. Just shoot me an email and say, hey, Terry, I'm XYZ company and I'm based in whatever city you're based in, and maybe a little bit about your company. And then I can direct you to the right person that you should be talking to. But I mean, to work with us, it's as simple as just reaching out. And I will say that the companies that know that we exist, a company like Emilio, and I don't think he really told his story about how he got those 500 accounts in Russia, I think it was. But the companies that know about us and that use us, they know the value of what we are doing. And this is your tax-paying dollars at work. So a lot of what we do is free. We are at your disposal in the sense of, this is what your government should be doing for you. So I would just encourage you that if you haven't worked with the U.S. Commercial Service before and you're not familiar with these resources, then to just reach out. I talk to companies all day, every day, and really try to familiarize you with the tools that are available. And it really does depend on you as a company. Like, this series is targeted at startups, but we can work with a startup company all the way to a more established company, to even a company that is already considered multinational. They just need us in different ways. And so we tailor what we do based on the companies that we work with. So I would say reach out, start out by just reaching out to us, and then we can help guide you along the way. And also so that you don't get lost in all of there's a lot of acronyms, there's a lot of offices, there's a lot of this, and I think that's what turns people off about government. And then you just kind of throw up your hands and be like, oh, it's just a bunch of bureaucrats, they can't really help me. But if you really tap into what we do, and then also know our offices overseas, which is really where the secret sauce of who we are. If you know my colleagues, which Josh used to, he kind of hesitated, but Josh used to be one of my overseas colleagues. He knows China very well, very, very well. So if you tap into that resource, you are working with people that are on the ground in country that can help guide you and help you avoid the landmines. That's the other thing. We see the mistakes that companies make. And so that's why we like to get in front early and say, okay, have you registered your IPR? Because let's not have this conversation about you going anywhere until we get your IPR registered in a specific market. You know, just the things that when companies come to us and I wish I had have known them a year before or 2 years before when they were making those decisions, because we can help hold your hand through the process. So that's my pitch. But it is as simple as picking up the phone or shooting an email, or I think Michael put my LinkedIn. I'm more active now on LinkedIn because that's where everybody's doing business now, I guess. But just reach out and we can plug you into this network of offices and folks that are very dedicated to making sure that a U.S. company is successful in international markets.
Great, thank you, Terry. One thing just to add to that, that Josh Halpern and alluded to, and with Export Connect, is that, and just to reiterate, is that the Export Assistance Centers in the U.S. side aren't just the International Trade Administration and Commerce. They also connect you to the Export-Import Bank, to the SBA, and to various other resources, and help you figure it out. Because as Terry said, there are a lot of acronyms that get thrown at you and a lot of different resources in that regard. But there are some cases the programs are complementary and they can fit a certain element of your business in ways that the others will not. And as Terry said, the secret sauce in terms of the connections overseas are incredibly important. And being able to get that complementary knowledge about where you're trying to, what country you're trying to reach and how is significant. And that's something we particularly want to make sure that you get. And so that when you start the process up, it's really significant that you are able to get it right, because one of the things we're aware of is that dealing with a country, putting a lot of time and effort into it, is that if you're a small business, you only have so many man hours, you have so many resources, you have so many things. So being able to make that work is incredibly important. So a couple things that I want to throw out to panelists. First, I will throw out to Joshua Aiken, just a clarifying, Joshua Aiken's a clarifying thing for you. What's the distinction between DDP and DDU, and why should anybody know that?
Okay, so we can play acronym for a minute. All right. DDP and DDU, if you just go down to the post office, let's say, throw something in a box and send it to a foreign country and pay for the postage, that's going to go DDU, which is duties and taxes, or duties. Well, it basically stands for duties unpaid, right? So they're going to be handled by the person that receives the package at the other end. DDP is prepaying duties and taxes at the time that you send the shipment. And you can't just do that with any carrier. Your common carriers like UPS and DHL and FedEx, they can do that. You can actually check a box that says, I, the shipper, am going to cover the duties and taxes for the shipment. It's actually called bill duties and taxes back to shipper. That's a DDP solution. You do that, the box gets delivered to the customer, customer's happy, and your shipper will turn around and bill you what the cost of those duties and taxes are. So that's definitely the better customer experience is DDP.
Great, thank you. Now, for Josh Halpern, I have a question that was submitted. Can you speak to the requirements related to exporting an herbal product that helps sports injuries, and what could be done in that regard?
Sure. Obviously, I'd have to look at the specifics of that ingredient list. But if you're claiming functional use, and it sounds like in this case you are claiming functional use, you're saying it does make a difference, it will have an impact on you medically. So there are certainly regulations, but it depends on which country. So what I mean by that is, if you're going into a country like China, for example, if you're selling direct to an individual consumer, the consumer assumes the risk. What does that mean? It means there are certain things that do not have to go through regulatory issues if it's going to an individual, but at the moment you start to sell it on bulk to a wholesaler or distributor, it will trigger those certification requirements. How do you get around that? In certain markets like China, but there are other markets, right? That could be, there are places in Europe as well. This also applies. Again, certain pieces of the puzzle you'd have to look at with a specialist, but the macro kind of perspective is put it in a free trade zone if you do start to increase volumes and you want to get closer to the market, but don't ever do wholesale distribution into that market if you don't want to have to deal with all the regulatory issues. So you can put it in a free trade zone or a bonded warehouse with even in the market or close to the market, and then sell it out of there. And if you don't have the infrastructure for that, but you have a distributor, say to your, a distributor interested, but you don't want to go through the 8-12 months of regulations, ask the distributor, do you have access to, or could you use my 3PL, 4PL, or 5PL to place inventory there in a free trade zone, and you pull it out for me, pick it, pack it in the warehouse. And that also avoids those regulatory issues. And that's the same for things like organic packaging. If you've gone through the rigmarole of getting organic certified for your nice new potato chips in American brand, made in America, and you don't want to get new packaging and worse new certification, also direct to consumer can avoid some of that repackaging issues. You'd have to take a look at the specifics, obviously, around your product, but that's a macro kind of view.
Great, thank you. Now, one thing, since Amelia, you've been so patient and waiting on that, do you have any questions for the panelists? I wanted to ask if you had anything you wanted to throw in or out at this point.
Honestly, as I said before, I like to learn more, and what Josh and Josh have been saying, I've been taking notes, and obviously I'm going to reach out to them with more calm and ask all these questions, but making sure that my site is ready, making sure that I can deliver to my customers overseas faster and better with hassle-free, definitely something that I'm interested. So yeah, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions later on.
Great, and thank you very much. And just for Josh Halpern, one side note specifically from the person who was asking the question in the audience is she wants to know if her client could potentially contact you for help with this later on.
Certainly. Yeah, I do love talking about this stuff. So I'm happy to shoot me an email. I don't know if should I put my email in here or something? Yes.
Some of it's been certainly the LinkedIn's been put in the general chat, but feel free to put your email in the chat, and that sounds great.
Okay, I'll put it in, but you link in me and we'll talk. Sure.
All right. Sounds good. And then the other thing, just to ask specifically for everybody, for the panelists, is that when I ask, are there anything else than what we haven't covered? Because I think we've actually been very, very good and thorough, but is there anything else particularly that you feel like people should know right now in terms of e-commerce, particularly in terms of any strategies, tools that we haven't covered that you want to make sure to bring up?
For my part, I would just say it's very doable, and all the acronyms and there's not that many gotchas that are going to hurt you that bad that you should be afraid to get started. And Terry should be your first call. U.S. Commercial Services knows all of the gotchas that you should be avoiding. In California, Josh should be your first guide. And then if you need something like what we've got, you can come find us. We do a lot of educating on the duty and tax side of things, but just don't be afraid to get started. There's not that many things that will stop you from growing your business outside the United States.
Terry?
I would just say, in terms of doing your homework and doing your research, like Emilio said in the beginning, look at our resources that are online. It's accessible. We're getting better with our, the government. We have issues with our websites, but we are getting better and smarter with how we deliver information to our companies and to our stakeholders. So I would say start at trade.gov/e-commerce. That'll get you to the e-commerce innovation lab. It'll get you to videos. It'll get you to all sorts of market research, just information that's out there, and also the business service providers that can assist you. Again, we don't endorse any service provider because we're the government, but there are lists of companies and what they do and how they can help your business that's listed on the site. And that is another great place to start, because we can tell you what you need to do, but we can't actually do the work for you. You're definitely going to have to use a consultant or someone who specializes in that area. And then last but not least, don't forget the STEP program. It is a wonderful resource. It can help offset some of the costs. It can be expensive, but you can offset some of the cost of updating your website and getting it ready so that you have all the pieces and all the resources that you need to continue to grow and to continue to go into new markets. And you don't even have to leave. We can all be at home and you can still be selling globally around the world. It is possible. So that's it.
Great. And to Josh Halpern, ask you, and then I've got one other last question that was thrown into everybody, which was specifically as well, is there a certain country that's easier to export to in general, or is it just completely dependent on the products? So I'm throwing that one to each of you, and then Josh Halpern, if you can add some last comments.
Can I just say something real quick? I'm gonna jump in front of Josh.
Oh, go ahead, Terry.
We get that question a lot. And I tell you, if I had an 8-ball and I could tell you where to export to, I don't think I'd be doing this job. I might be exporting to those places. But I would say, look at where we have free trade agreements. And again, I had mentioned NAFTA has been renegotiated. So it's no longer NAFTA, it's called USMCA, US-Mexico-Canada agreement. It's always better to start closer to home when you're going cross-border. A lot of people, they don't even realize they're exporting and they're selling to Canada. It's almost like selling over to the next state. So I would say start with easy markets first. And also, it really does depend on your product. What kind of product are you selling? Is it a consumer product? What is it that you have? Because that'll also depend on what markets you go to. So that's my answer. And Josh and Joshua, I'll pass it off to them for them to contribute or hopefully co-sign what I just said.
Go ahead. Good.
I always agree with Terry, regardless, but that's absolutely accurate. You know, it doesn't help when someone's asking for it because it's not a very satisfying answer. It's a true one. But, you know, I do think that there are misconceptions that Canada's easier, especially if you're going into, you know, French speaking and labeling, some of the other issues and some of the taxes and duties. So it's all depending on the product. It depends on where your audience is. But in general, I guess my big response to that would be, the equation is not just what's easier from a regulatory or a tax and duty. It's what's easier with the cost benefit of consumer acquisition. If you have consumers already talking about a product in Zimbabwe, but it's very hard to get there, but you've got a huge market potential there. So your pain point, what you have to address is how do you get the product there? But it luckily is not the biggest piece of the equation, which is how do you build the audience, which I think is really where you need to focus.
Great.
And do I get to do my intro or should I wait for Ed to do my
Yes,
outro?
go ahead.
Wrap it.
Okay. Aikens, you have something to say about that though? No? Okay. I'm pointing here. I don't know where you are on the screen for everyone else, but okay. Just real quick, you know, again, incremental is the key. Everybody, you can do it. I have been traveling the country in a mobile video studio called the Van Ambassador, talking to brands about how they're going global. I'm releasing a video today. I just put the YouTube link there. If you do want to have some fun and you want to follow me on those platforms, we're talking about real businesses that are doing it and they're seeing increases 50% up on their online sales, even though they're 50% down in brick and mortar. So people are doing it around the country and it's time. It's our time.
And I would agree with that completely. It is the time. It's the time for e-commerce. It's the time to be able to grow and reach countries and platforms in a way that would not have even been thinkable in the past. That's the way the economy is going, not just within the US, but globally as well. And this is your opportunity and your chance to be able to take advantage of that and do that. And we particularly want to thank our excellent group of panelists and our amazing entrepreneur. And we want to thank all of you for watching and participating. And this is, we'll emphasize again, a great time, not just because of the pandemic, but just because also the technology is there, the opportunity and the resources are there to be able to use e-commerce, to access the global markets, to be able to export, to import, to do business more broadly, and to think about exactly and how you're doing your business and to look to the future. And for all of you, thank you very much to our great panelists. Thanks to Terry, Joshua, and Josh. Thanks to Emilio. Thanks as well to Jamaica for her great interview in the beginning. And thanks to everyone. And we look forward to seeing you again in a week on next Monday night.